What really happened to Kodak, the company that invented the future, then lost it? Imagine creating the technology that would change the world forever, and then watching someone else use it to destroy your business. That sounds impossible. But that's exactly what happened to Kodak. For almost 100 years, Kodak wasn't just a camera company, it was photography. Millions of families trusted Kodak to capture birthdays, weddings, vacations, and the biggest moments of their lives. The company's famous slogan, Kodak Moment, became part of everyday language. Then, almost overnight, everything changed. And the most shocking part? Kodak actually invented the future before anyone else did. So, how did the company that created digital photography end up becoming one of the biggest business failures in history? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning. In 1888, George Eastman founded Kodak with one simple idea. Photography should be easy for everyone. At the time, taking a picture was slow, expensive, and complicated. Eastman changed all of that. His famous promise was simple. You press the button, we do the rest. People loved it. Kodak didn't just sell cameras, it sold memories. Even more importantly, Kodak discovered a brilliant business model. Cameras were sold relatively cheaply, but customers had to keep buying Kodak film and paying Kodak to develop their photos. Every vacation, every birthday, every family album meant more film sales. It was a money-making machine. By the 1970s, Kodak controlled nearly 90% of the film market in the United States. It employed more than 140,000 people worldwide and was worth billions. It looked unstoppable. But deep inside one of Kodak's own laboratories, a quiet revolution was about to begin. In 1975, a young Kodak engineer named Steven Sasson built something no one had ever seen before. It wasn't impressive. It weighed nearly 4 kilograms, took over 20 seconds to capture a single black and white image, and stored that image on a cassette tape. The photo quality was terrible, but it worked. Sasson had just created the world's first digital camera. Excited, he presented it to Kodak executives. Instead of celebrating, many of them became nervous. The reason was simple. If cameras no longer needed film, Kodak's biggest source of profit would disappear. Digital photography wasn't just a new invention. It was a threat to Kodak's entire business. So instead of racing to develop the technology, Kodak chose to protect its film empire. At the time, that decision didn't seem crazy. Film was still making enormous profits. People around the world continued buying rolls of film every single day. Why destroy a business that was printing money? But technology doesn't wait for anyone. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, digital cameras improved rapidly. Companies like Sony, Canon, Nikon, and later smartphone makers saw the opportunity Kodak was afraid to embrace. While Kodak worried about protecting yesterday's business, its competitors were building tomorrow's. By the early 2000s, digital cameras had become affordable for everyday people. Then came another massive shift, the smartphone. Suddenly, millions of people were carrying a camera in their pocket every hour of every day. No film, no photo labs, no waiting. Take a picture. Look at it instantly. Share it with the world in seconds. The business Kodak had spent a century building was disappearing faster than anyone imagined. Ironically, Kodak actually owned many of the patents behind digital imaging. The company had invented much of the technology everyone else was using. But inventing something isn't enough. You also have to be willing to replace your own success before someone else does. Kodak wasn't. Film sales collapsed, factories closed, thousands of employees lost their jobs. The company that once symbolized innovation was suddenly struggling just to survive. In 2012, the unthinkable happened. Kodak filed for bankruptcy protection. For a company that had dominated photography for nearly a century, it marked the end of an era. Many people believed Kodak had completely disappeared, but that's not entirely true. After bankruptcy, Kodak reinvented itself as a much smaller company focused on commercial printing, industrial imaging, packaging technology, and licensing its enormous portfolio of patents. The Kodak name still exists. It's just no longer the giant that shaped the world's memories. Today, Kodak's story is taught in business schools across the globe. Not because it failed to innovate, but because it failed to believe in its own innovation. Its greatest invention became its greatest fear. And that's the lesson. Success can become a trap. The bigger you are, the harder it becomes to let go of what made you successful in the first place. Kodak didn't lose because it lacked brilliant engineers. It lost because it protected the present instead of building the future. Sometimes the biggest threat to a company isn't its competitors. It's the fear of replacing itself before someone else does. And in Kodak's case, the future had already arrived. It was just sitting in one of its own laboratories.